Could you please state your name and place of birth for the record?
My name is James Malcolm Brown. I was born in Washington, D.C.
Could you please tell briefly about the neighborhood you grew in prior to and how life was prior to enlisting into the service?
Well, basically, the neighborhood was just filled with people who were like a family. It was a family-oriented area. We could sleep with our doors open at night. There was nothing to be afraid of. Didn't have to worry about anybody breaking in or anything of that nature.
And it was
integrated to a certain extent. There were different nationalities living in that area at the time. So I guess you would say it was integrated.
Okay. The service was once not open to blacks. However, with the passage of the Selective Service Act in 1940, African Americans could join. So were you drafted into the service, or did you enlist on your own?
I enlisted at the age of 17 from out of high school.
Okay.
And during that time, there was a lot of stuff going on that young folks out of going to high school at that time didn't have too much to do. So the best thing for us to do was to go into the service.
Okay, I understand. Okay, according to the research I did, many newly enlisted blacks in the Navy would go to boot camp with the whites, but they still had separate training facilities and separate units. Was that true or not for you, or how did that play out?
That was true at the time that I went in. I went into boot camp with what they call Bainbridge, Maryland. Mm-hmm. And basically, the purpose of going in that camp was to serve the officers. Okay. Officers, you know. Mm-hmm. They done the table suffer breakfast and so on.
So you were like a messman?
But as a messman. But I was reassigned after I boarded the ship to regular seamen to do duties, like shipping paint and taking care of the ship.
Okay, so it's regular duty.
Between the whites and blacks.
Okay.
And of course we had a captain of the ship that was an old Marine Corps officer. Mm-hmm. He called all the ship's company together and stated his responsibility and his duties and what he expected of the ship's company. Mm-hmm. So as a result of that, he gave those that did not want to comply with the responsibility, the duties of his ship, he offered them a transfer.
Oh, okay.
So when they transferred and we resolved the confrontation, then we had no more problems there. I mean, we ate together, we slept together, and we just mingled together.
So basically,
with no problems at all, no racial problems, I would say.
Oh, good, because your commander established it from the beginning.
From the beginning.
Okay. So some military black officer or whatever their role was in the military were upset that they were assigned to shore duty mainly, and that they didn't have more advancement opportunities or different things.
Well, I had no knowledge. I had no knowledge of shore duty.
Okay.
Because
you want to go to shore duty?
It didn't make any difference to me. I mean, I was in the service. I was there to serve. Okay. So they assigned me to a ship. I said, well, this is my shore duty. See, so I spent most of my time aboard ship. 18 months really aboard ship. The only time that we went ashore was to pick up and deliver troops from one theater of operation to another. In other words, we would go over to the European area, pick up those soldiers that were fighting over there, and then take some of them to the Southwest Pacific area, and ask them to continue the fight there. Then we also brought some home, and we just used to make trips back and forth to both theater of operations.
Oh, good. So, okay, how about sleeping quarters? Were those integrated or those were still segregated?
We had sleeping quarters that weren't separate. We had regular sleeping quarters, well, they call bunk beds aboard ship. Okay. Yeah. So there was no difference as far as the way you sleep. I mean, you would have a white sailor above you, and then you would have a black sailor sleeping in the lower bunk.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
So there was no segregation as far as... See, after the confrontation and after the captain got everything straightened out there, we didn't have any problem.
Oh. Could you describe an incident in the service that really impressed upon you that the service considered blacks as inferior?
I was stationed in New York, New Rochelle, New York, and I got orders to go to Hampton Road in Virginia, Norfolk, that area, and this white sailor and I were on the same orders. So during the time that we traveled from New York to Hampton Road or to Norfolk, we ate together, we slept together, we more or less just congregated together. But when I got to Hampton Road, we would go to the mess hall, and at this particular time, we ordered, and upon I guess the steward accepting our order, they would say, they would take the white sailor's order, but wouldn't take my order. So I asked him, I said, well, what's wrong? Something wrong with my meal ticket or something? He said, no, it was against the ship's policy to serve blacks aboard that ship. I mean, it wasn't a ship, it was like a ferry. See, because they were transferring us from one station to another, doing that in that area. Yeah. So that's the only time, really, that I run into any particular segregated problems. Yeah.
From what I learned, it's saying that some of the German prisoners of war could view the concerts, but the African Americans had to sit behind the officers.
I wasn't aware of that. I was not aware of that because I never went to a USO. I served most of my limited time in the city, and probably just went to some of the local bars or local entertainment centers and things that were frequented by Negroes.
How do you feel about hearing that now, though, that prisoners of war were considered greater than your fellow officers?
Well, I would have been upset, really. Right. I would have been upset. I went to, you're serving your country, and then they're trying to do something against your country, and then they're going to have more privileges than you have. Naturally, that would upset anybody.
Right. I feel upset right now.
Talking about it.
How do you feel about the fact that your service just in of itself made advancement for colored people? Well,
if you put it that way, I felt we did make a contribution. But I just want to say this. After I got off the ship and I was assigned to quarters in Norfolk, I found that most blacks segregated themselves, really, because I don't know whether it's because they were not aware of the executive order that was signed by the president, because on the space, they had a notice on the bulletin board, anyone interested in playing basketball, baseball, or doing some type of recreation or whatever, report to a certain area at a certain time. So I went down and I looked around, and I was the only black there, and I was wondering why. And the same took when I went to the theater. I'm sitting up there in the audience, a bunch of white sailors around me and no blacks. So I went back to the barracks. I questioned them. I said, don't you fellas play basketball or baseball or something? I said, they had a notice of, why didn't you come down and join the team or something to that effect? Or why didn't you go to the movie? I said, I was there and I was the only one there. So one of the guys, he said, well, they won't let me. I said, well, if they don't want to let you, have you tried?
Right.
See? And they come to find out they never tried. They just segregated themselves. They just huddled up in one corner or something and just stayed there by themselves. So I say, well, I mean, if you don't try, you never know whether you can or not.
Had you heard about some Negro heroes of the war, such as Doris Miller, who
I didn't hear about that until after I got out of the service.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Black papers were talking about this Double V campaign, saying that they wanted blacks for the war, but we were fighting communism at home, and then going to the war and fighting fascism. Have you heard of the Double V campaign or not?
Well, I wasn't aware of the situation as far as that was concerned, but we just went along with the program.